Do you want to build a deck that's janky and can still win games? This is the video for you.
I'm Mia, and I love writing with metallic Sharpies.
I'm Beezy, and I love Amber's little toe beans, even though she's leaving us. And we're sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. You can use code NERDS at checkout to save 5% on your order. So that's 1/20th off of your purchase. Whenever you use the code at checkout, Amber's back. She loves Cool Stuff Inc.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
We always use them to protect our deck and our amazing cards.
If you go to the EU or the US link, you're supporting the channel and yourself at the same exact time.
We're also sponsored by Moxfield.com. There's going to be an ad somewhere for Moxfield in this video, and you can't guess where it is. And if you said you guessed and you got it right, you're lying.
And happy birthday to everyone whose birthday is today, followed by super special, ultra sponsored shout out from Whatnot. This is a shopping marketplace, people. We're talking Magic the Gathering cards in front of your face being opened live.
On live stream, there's also giveaways and so much more. And if you want $10 for free, you can sign up through our referral link.
Yes, it'll give you $10 off your first purchase. That's kind of just a freebie, so I'd recommend at the very least, get on there, use that, get some free money, but also just hang around. You can just enter giveaways, win some stuff without spending any money yourself.
You can send messages right to the people on stream so they can read it, and you can connect with some of your favorite creators that way.
I'd recommend you get on there. We like Whatnot. Whatnot's cool.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm really excited about today's topic. This is building a jank deck. Everybody loves jank. Everyone likes to build jank decks with like heavy restrictions or super cool themes, but we also want to make sure they can win the game. You can have a jank deck that also wins the game, and we're not just going to say add tutors to your deck for 20 minutes. That's dumb advice, and we're not going to do it. We're going to talk about how to build a functional deck that is jank.
It's going to be a lot of fun while still adhering to that theme that might make it harder to build that deck than a more meta deck, let's say.
Yeah, so the best thing we figured we'd do, we did this a while ago actually, is we polled our Discord and one other special guest that we'll talk about later. We got 4 example decks, and we're talking about what they do well and why they're good examples, and you can take notes for these decks for our own jank decks.
I'm really excited to talk about these, so let's get into it.
First up is Vesuvius' Eloise Nefalio Sleuth deck. This is the deck full of detectives, clue-making, investigation, sort of like inquisitive, classic like magnifying glass over the eye deck. This is like totally flavorful, and we're going detecting.
I love this because I have a friend who also does Alanis and the Clue Crew deck. So this is so on theme. There's like Dog and Detective and all that sort of thing. And we're just going to get into it because it's so much fun.
Yeah, the win cons. First thing to take note of for this deck, the win con names are not like 100% on theme. So we have like this super strict detective jank deck full of clues and full of like semi-synergistic stuff. But when it comes to the win cons, we sort of shave it a little bit, and we go to things like Time Sieve, which is sack 5 artifacts, take an extra turn after this one. It works perfectly with all of the clues and everything we're trying to do. It's like the smallest amount of like flavor to give up, but it turns our janky detective stuff into a win condition.
You need to close the game somehow in this, so you're not going to find like Crater Hoof or Expropriate in these types of decks when you want to stick to the core flavor.
Right, yeah, so we're not just going to put in Expropriate. We're not going to put in like paint by numbers win condition that could go in any deck. These decks, these win conditions are still synergistic. They just don't have somebody running a detective agency. March of the Machines turns all your clues into 0/0s, which then kind of loops infinitely if you want to get really spiky with Eloise and just start going off that way.
That's a lot of fun. Also, Marionette Master, every time an artifact hits the graveyard, target opponent's going to lose X life, where X is the power of Marionette Master. When you're sacking so many clues, it's going to add up immensely.
Yeah, so these are ways, along with like Disciple of the Vault. 1 mana 1/1. Whenever an artifact dies, you make somebody lose a life. These are going to, like literally just 1, 2, 3, 4 inclusions in the deck are going to tie the entire thing together and let you churn through your library, sacrifice clues, do your game plan, have everybody laugh and joke along the way because these are janky detectives and it's really fun to do. But you can actually be a threat and still win the game. Like the backup win conditions, they all pay off the theme specifically. There's no need for Crater Hoof or Expropriate type stuff.
I think the most important thing when sticking with flavor is that you can add in these little cards that are synergistic and not cookie cutter win cons, because how if you're adding in 4 cards that aren't perfect with your flavor, but in the end it's like still really, really good, that's only like 4% of your commander deck. That's almost nothing, and the rest is on flavor, on point. You've got this.
I think if you throw down an expropriate, it sort of robs your deck a little bit of like the memorability of it and like the theme. It's like, oh, you're playing a clue deck, but you won by taking 7. Like you just took everybody's best permanent and then won. It's like with Time Sieve, it's like, oh, you sacrificed all your clues to take infinite turns or take 3 turns in a row and just crush us. Like, I'm gonna remember that. That's the jank I need.
That's a lot of fun.
Next, we're going to active Discord member and IRL friend of mine, Patrick, who has a non-black Zombies Matter deck. This is blue, red, green, white. Partners are Krav, the blue-red zombie that draws when people cast their second spell, and Sidar Kondo, which makes your small creatures harder to block. This is like, I love this deck. It takes zombies, which are primarily black, almost exclusively. It's what they're known for, and it makes a typal deck based all around it.
I think that if you said, like, oh, I was leaning into some blue zombies, some people might go, okay, because it's like Rooftop Storm is a big, like, heavy hitter in zombie decks. But with no black, that's just, like, completely out of left field, and it's really fun to see.
Right. So the thing that gets you down a little bit that makes this deck so jank is that there's no zombies to choose from. The selection is razor thin. There's almost none. But what Patrick does is he adds card draw for more selection and staying power in the game, so he can draw cards and churn through his library. So we can get to kind of like a little equation. It's like a high number of zombies in your deck and a low number of card draw is about the same as a medium number of zombies with a medium amount of card draw or a high amount of card draw. You're going to see your lower number of zombies more often when you just draw more cards.
This is actually keeping up with the rest of the decks, though, because if you're drawing so many cards, you might need some time to draw all those. But he's keeping up with the other decks at the table by using a lot of removal, by wiping the board with, like, Blasphemous Act and Austere Command, and then just hitting permanents with Generous Gift and Beast Within. You know, all the non-black removal spells, so he can just eliminate the threats while he's looking for the zombies.
Yeah, Swords to Plowshares is in this deck. There's a lot of spot removal, a decent amount of removal, so you can keep up with people. Everyone's got to play removal. Removal's kind of just part of a deck, right? And there's not really zombie removal spells. Even in black, there's not like a zombie that kills something. There's not 12 of those to play. So Pier's Whim is another one. Actually happens to be a tutor to find Field of the Dead, which is one of the best ways to make zombies. Unrelated. We're not going to say that's making the deck better. We're just talking about it's a 3-for-1, and it just helps you keep up, get ahead on card advantage. We're drawing cards, and then we're staying ahead with removal so that our crappy zombies, the blue ones and the white ones, and maybe the changelings can stay on board and have more of an impact.
If your theme is kind of shaky, like this one might be because there's not as much support for it, you can definitely keep up by keeping tempo with the rest of your opponents. Another great way to power up your jank deck is Moxfield.com, the best place online to build any sort of deck, whether that be Pauper, Commander, or just a list of cards in general.
I think if you even need to build a deck in the back of your house to jump into your pool, Moxfield's still the best way to do it. That's how efficient and user-friendly their user interface is. You can sort cards, tag cards, reshape cards. The cards are yours to mold on Moxfield.
I think one of my favorite parts about Moxfield is the fact that I can change the artwork to look at whatever I want, because sometimes there's some arts that I'm just not feeling. I'm not really keen on the retro borders, so I can change that to just look at all of the shiny new things, and I really like that. It just makes deck building that much more enjoyable.
Yeah, for me, I kind of don't like the frame around the like Warhammer and the Lord of the Rings cards. I don't know why they chose it. It looks really weird. So I prefer to just take those out and flip it so that I can view the deck the way I want. That's all because of Moxfield. Moxfield, you're amazing. So we're going to move on to the next deck, the actual deck. It's No Camera Nathan's, that's his name, Abzan Spellslinger. Is it Spellslinger turned literally completely on its head? It's every other color that is not Is it Spellslinger. The commander is Anafenza the Foremost. Kind of, as far as I can tell, irrelevant. Abzan Spellslinger, not an archetype. Probably not an archetype you've ever even thought of. So there's no commanders for it. So Anafenza is probably the best one you can get. It's going to leverage things like Professor Onyx, which has Magecraft, drain each opponent for 2. Witherbloom Apprentice, Magecraft, drain each opponent for 1. There's very few payoffs. Sedgemoor Witch, cast an instant or sorcery, get a 1/1. Leonin Lightscribe can actually pump your team. This is like next level jank.
I mean, Strixhaven gave so much power to this deck. I'm not even sure if there would be payoffs before it.
There's like 4 other ones. So we're really talking like the strength of this deck, sticking and committing to a theme. There's 39 instants or sorceries in this deck, so this deck can actually go off. If you just put 20 in this deck and you had a lot of creatures and bad payoffs for it, just filled, you could never really chain that many spells together. So this guy actually, Nathan, stuck to the theme. I'm going to put 40 instants and sorceries in this deck.
I really like that because it's so focused on what it wants to do. But this win condition isn't fast, death by 1,000 cuts, right? So you have to use spells like Moment's Peace. It just, while you're sticking around, you just have to just wait it out till you can get those final few points of damage in.
Right, so he made a few like key inclusions. Moment's Peace is just a fog. But having the fog in your deck lets you build up to the best of your ability and use cards that are like very high variance to give yourself that extra key turn and start chaining really bad cantrips like Cremate, which is that's part of the 40 spells in this deck. So you're going to chain them all until you get your win conditions. And we talked about on-theme powerful win conditions like Chain of Smog is in here. That just goes infinite with Witherbloom Apprentice. It lets you actually be like a threat at the table while doing just complete and utter nonsense. Cremate triggering Magecraft on 3 things is amazing.
I would love to see this in action, just watching everyone get dinged by the Abzan Spellslinger deck.
Yeah, the Abzan Spellslinger. I've done a lot of Abzan things, and that is not one of them. And the last special guest deck builder, Mia, who is it?
It's me. It's my Door to Nothingness deck, which I have talked a lot about on the channel, like mentioned in passing.
Why don't you give us the commander and then what the commander does in a brief rundown of the deck?
Ramos, the Dragon Engine, is my commander, and because if you put 5+1/+1 counters on him, you can remove them all and get double Wooburg. And the point of this deck is to get the Door to Nothingness and kill your opponents with that. There's other ways to kill people, like with Ramos commander damage, because he can get very big, but I'm usually aiming to door everyone at the table.
Right, and so your number one goal with this absolute jank strategy is to protect it.
Absolutely, because I need that door. Like, if the door gets exiled, I don't have that win con anymore. I am scrapping for pieces. So I have, I'm using my removal carefully. I'm not countering something like Rhystic Study. I'll counter something that tries to exile the door, like that Farewell that might hit my artifacts.
Yeah. You got to, pick your battles and, really choose your key moments. And you're kind of almost, playing it like a combo where you're just, you're in your lane, you're building up the 78 things you need to have Door to Nothingness enter untapped and to be able to copy the trigger or clone it or something to get multiple people KO'd at once. And you can't really go around expending all your 1-for-1 removal or your 2-for-1 removal on random stuff.
There's a lot of moving pieces to get the door active because it's so easily predictable, because I tell people that I'm going to play a Door to Nothingness deck, and since it takes a turn to untap, it's very it's very easy to see ahead. So sometimes I include lightning rod cards like Atraxa and Shurikai. People are more likely to use their removal on those, which gives me kind of a paved way to put the door out because I can see they've used a lot of removal already.
Yeah, Shurikai is so annoying. It kind of requires an artifact destruction, so it'll get something like, I don't know, a Braid or Generous Gift out of the hand, and you're like, cool, I already drew my cards, found my door, time for the next step. And I also think another strength of this deck and just how we're doing jank in general is just to know what beats you. Like you said, you're like, I'm looking out for a well-timed Farewell, some kind of aggro deck that's going to take extra combats and kill me because my first 7 turns of the game are playing tapped artifacts.
Yeah, you try and ramp things out as soon as possible, but since it is not based around so much ramp, as in just colorless artifacts and then just making mana, just incremental advantage till you can get the door down, it's kind of tough to protect it. So just if you think someone's gonna be farewelling, you save that counter spell. If you think the door is going to be in the graveyard and someone's going to Bajuka Bog you keep the Noxious Revival in your hand so you can put it back on top. It's just kind of knowing what you're most afraid of at the table and then doing your best to look for the cards in your deck to help combat that.
And we have a bonus tip after all of these decks. I would say that you can get a lot of extra value in your jank decks by leveraging political cards, especially the cards that are on theme. That's even more gravy. But seriously, I think it could get you like out of these sticky situations. We're talking like Monarch or Initiative cards. If you just kind of plant the seed and you have this little extra like carrot that everyone's reaching for, it definitely is a little bit of a distraction for when you're like conniving behind the scenes, trying to go Time Sieve or Field of the Dead or Door to Nothingness or Leonin Light Scribe.
If you've ever watched BZ play Marchesa, you would always see him get Monarchy and then go Monarchy for 1. And it's like, that's a good trade if you're getting that extra card, but it also puts the target on you because everyone else wants Monarchy.
It's my favorite like catchphrase for that deck, like Monarchy for 1, attack me with a 1/1. It's like, not only am I only taking 1 damage, but you're going to be attacked for the Monarchy. And then it's like, I'm going to just build up my resources, keep my stuff here, draw some cards. It's going to be great.
So in that situation or with Initiative, it's so easy to introduce a perk to the table and then just point it to somebody else being like, oh, you can have it, and then just not be the focus of anyone else because it's not on you at that point.
Yeah, you just back up and you let your jank sing. I hope that these jank decks have given you some wonderful inspiration. Mia, where are we sending them? This is putting you on the spot. Super hardcore.
I think we're going to send them right to overperformers of last month.
Good job, good job. And remember, Field of the Dead is still a jank card.